Hey, welcome to a new product video from Nootropics Depot. My name's Erika, and this is Emiel, our product specialist at Nootropics Depot.
Hey everyone.
Today, Emiel and I are going to be talking to you about two brand new products that we just released. And these are products that we've been experimenting with, trying them out before they were released, so we can tell you a little bit about their effects and why you might be interested in trying them for yourself.
And the first one we're going to be talking about, you've been waiting for a long time. InfiniLyte. This is our electrolyte supplement, our intelligent hydration formula. So we've done a lot of research, a lot of formulation to make an electrolyte that we thought for ourselves is good. It's no surprise, well, us not anymore. We're living in the Netherlands. It's actually currently raining. It's a little bit wet here. We don't have as much of a need for an electrolyte unless we're heavily exercising. But where the company is based, Nootropics Depot and Natrium Health, is in the desert in Arizona. And it's always hot there, and you're always losing a lot of moisture and electrolytes because when you sweat, it actually evaporates quite rapidly. So you also don't notice exactly how much fluid you're losing, how many electrolytes you're using. So it's always good to stay hydrated in a desert. And we drank a lot more water when we were in the desert. And we drank a lot more electrolytes, store-bought electrolytes, and all of us around the office, we basically have to use electrolytes. If you don't use proper electrolytes, if you're out, even just going out golfing or something in Arizona, you will sweat enough where you will need an electrolyte for small amounts of physical activity. So when you're going and hiking a mountain or going for a mountain bike ride or a road bike ride, you really need to pay special attention to how you rehydrate and the electrolytes you get in. So with that in mind, we're very particular about electrolytes, and we've tried out a lot of different electrolytes, and one thing we found looking at pretty much all of the electrolytes is that they're not very comprehensive. They give you sodium, every electrolyte gives you sodium, and basically every electrolyte gives you chloride. That's because the main sodium source being used is just salt, and salt is sodium chloride. And both sodium and chloride are electrolytes, so they're both important. So if you're exercising, you want to get a little bit of sodium, you want to get a little bit of chloride, and you look then towards electrolytes that contain these. But they don't contain a whole lot else. Some electrolytes contain a little bit of potassium, some electrolytes contain some carbohydrates to help with the overall rehydration. But they're pretty simple, and a lot of them are based on the WHO, the World Health Organization, ORS. This stands for Oral Rehydration Salts, and this is a very basic formula that has been very life-saving through many parts of the world. If, for example, you have diarrhea and you lose a lot of electrolytes through that, you need to replace them, but you need to replace them quickly and cheaply in a lot of parts of the world, especially where diarrhea is more common. So you have this base electrolyte formula that has been optimized for efficiency and for cost. But that doesn't mean it's super comprehensive, and it doesn't mean it's comprehensive in a non-life-threatening situation. Of course, for the WHO, we're usually looking at people who are in really bad shape. We're not looking at athletes who are trying to optimize their athletic performance by having a mix of electrolytes, a lot of different electrolytes replenish themselves. This is going to allow you to maybe have a bit more endurance, and it's going to allow you to recover quicker. And that WHO ORS formulation isn't necessarily going to do that. It is going to help a little bit, which is why a lot of electrolytes that are based on this WHO ORS formulation work. But they don't work that well, and this is something that we wanted to change for ourselves. And there are some people exploring that, people putting a little bit more potassium, a little bit of magnesium in there, but there's a lot of electrolytes that get missed. And this is the first issue. The second issue is that electrolytes are important, and these, by the way, are calcium, which is an electrolyte, and you see that in almost no electrolyte supplements, which is strange because it is genuinely an electrolyte. Sodium, potassium, magnesium, and then chloride, like I mentioned earlier, bicarbonate, and phosphorus. So you have all of these different electrolytes, and most electrolytes contain chloride, sodium, and potassium, and not a whole lot of the other ones.
But if you have just watched our podcast episode, which released on Tuesday this week, we talk all about magnesium and the biological processes that are using up magnesium in our magnesium stores, whether that's our magnesium that's in our cells or the magnesium that is outside of our cells. And exercise is one of those things that uses up a lot of magnesium.
Yes, and magnesium is very important for controlling the flow of other electrolytes throughout the body. For example, without magnesium, the sodium-potassium pump doesn't work, which allows you to pump potassium and sodium in and out of cells. And this is really important for how our cells work, but also for things like blood pressure, overall cardiovascular function. This is really important, and you need magnesium for that. So when it comes to electrolytes, when it comes to rehydration, magnesium might be playing a very important role. And a lot of electrolytes are not including magnesium, and if they are, it's magnesium in quite small amounts. We put 100 milligrams of elemental magnesium in here, which is a quarter of what you need every day. And like Erika said, if you want to know a little bit more about magnesium and how much you need to get in, watch our magnesium podcast. We talk about it a lot there. And in the case that maybe you live in France or Italy and you're getting right around 300 milligrams of elemental magnesium per day, this is going to get you exactly to that 420-ish milligrams of elemental magnesium you want to be consuming on a daily basis.
So let's clarify that just for a moment so that everybody who's watching this video knows what is the dose of magnesium in our electrolyte.
100 milligrams of elemental magnesium, so that's the actual magnesium, not the salt that it is a part of or the complex it is a part of. And within InfiniLyte, we're using two different forms of magnesium. We're using magnesium citrate, a very simple form of magnesium, and like we discussed in the magnesium podcast, you have magnesiums that are very good at increasing the intracellular, what's inside of your cells, magnesium levels, and then there are certain forms that don't penetrate inside of the cells as good, so we usually deem those as being lower bioavailability magnesiums, but a lot of those forms of magnesium are quite good at increasing the extracellular amount of magnesium, which can have some beneficial effects for fluid balance and for cardiovascular function and things like that. So having some magnesium citrate in here is going to allow us to increase our extracellular levels a bit, but then we also want to, of course, increase the intracellular levels of magnesium, because that's also where some of this potassium-sodium pump mechanisms are really important. So for that, we used one of our new forms of magnesium, which we discussed in length on the magnesium podcast, which is magnesium glycerophosphate. We're using this for a very specific reason, and that's because it's giving us magnesium and it's giving us phosphate. Phosphate is another important electrolyte, and it's very important in the overall hydration picture. And then you also have glycerol. It is glycerophosphate after all, and glycerol helps you pull a little bit more water into your blood, so it has a bit of a volumizing effect. In higher doses, bodybuilders have been using this to give themselves a bit more of a pump, but in lower doses it actually helps you hydrate a little bit. And we have noticed, taking the magnesium glycerophosphate for the last week or so, that we do seem to be a little bit more hydrated feeling, which is a bit hard to put a finger on, but the water I drink seems to be hydrating me more. That's very pseudoscientific, unscientific, so don't put much stock in that. But it is a nice form of magnesium to have.
Another personal anecdote that could illustrate this a little bit is I sometimes struggle to keep my mouth closed when I'm sleeping at night, but I'm not having as much difficulty and I'm not waking up with a super dry mouth. And I think that part of this is just having enough saliva, enough hydration to actually comfortably close my mouth and then keep it closed for the whole night. So that's something that I've noticed in the last week.
Again, also a bit of a pseudoscientific,
totally
unscientific opinion, so don't put much stock in that. But interesting effects. And that's part of the reason why we put it in InfiniLyte. Before we keep talking a little bit more, I do want to actually mix some of this up so we can drink it.
Let's do it.
We're having a bit of issues flavoring this. Turns out flavoring an electrolyte is kind of hard. You're dealing with something that's quite alkaline, something that's quite salty. So designing a flavor that doesn't bring out like a type of soapiness, or as we've called it a few times during beta testing, a bit of a urinal cake type aroma flavor, seems to come out because of this alkalinity. Again, when you drink things like alkaline water, It's alkaline because you have a lot of minerals in there. This is super concentrated mineral. So also, if you want to be making yourself some alkaline water, this is a pretty good way of doing it because it's unflavored. There's no acids in here. It is somewhat alkaline. I don't believe in the whole alkaline water thing, but if that's your thing, you can make your own alkaline water with this.
So let's drink some and
Yes.
tell you a little bit more about the flavor that you can expect. This is going to be neutral, but you do taste some of those subtle flavors from the minerals that are in the InfiniLyte.
Yes. So, again, scoop. All of our new products that are powders, especially powder stacks, are going to contain a scoop. This is no different. So it's very easy to dose. And instead of having one big scoop for an entire dose, we've actually split it up so you can be a bit more extended with your intake of electrolytes. We've based this on about 1 to 2 hours of very, very vigorous exercise where you're losing between 1 to 4 liters of sweat. And with that in mind, this is going to help replenish what you lose with about that much. But that means if you're going on a 30-minute run around the neighborhood or an hour-long walk and you're not sweating that much, you might not need a full dose. You just need a little bit. You haven't sweat that much. You don't have that much to replenish. So it's easier if you can split it up into multiple little scoops. So a full dose is 4 scoops. And the most popular use is going to be that you put 2 scoops in 16 ounces or half a liter of water. Drink that and then do it again. Or you can all mix it in a liter, which this is a liter, but that's a pretty big bottle and not a whole lot of people are carrying around a liter of water at a time. So a lot of people have that 16 ounce, half liter size water bottle. 2 scoops of this in there, you're going to have the ideal flavor, the ideal concentration, and I find that it works better if you split it up, but I'll comment on that a little bit more later. So let's mix it up. So quite a small scoop, and this is just pure concentrated minerals, so there's nothing bulking it up. When we have a flavored one or we have one with some dextrose in it, for example, then it is going to be a much bigger scoop, but this is just concentrated minerals, no fillers, nothing else. So 1 scoop.
Something that you might find interesting, I find it very interesting, is the color of the InfiniLyte, and it's a grayish light green blue.
And maybe I can show you that. Let's see if we can do this fancy YouTuber thing. I think that did it. Maybe not. You can probably see it at the background of my hand. It is indeed a little bit blue grayish. And when you mix it up, it becomes green. And that was my 4th scoop that I put in here.
Where does that color come from?
The color comes from copper. So we put copper in here. Copper is a mineral that you lose during exercise. It is not an electrolyte, but it is an essential trace mineral that we need for a lot of biological functions, and we happen to lose quite a bit of it through our sweat. So we want to replace that too. And we'll start getting into just how comprehensive this is in a second. But I do want to mix some of this up so you can actually see. Interesting, it kind of sparkles in these studio lights. Do you see that?
Yeah.
I can really see these minerals falling down. But let's mix it up. And the green color is coming from copper, but specifically it's coming from chlorophyll. So we're using a chlorophyll-bound copper complex.
Okay.
And that's where the green color is coming from. So you get a little bit of that bluish, greenish from copper already, but it's obviously enhanced quite a bit because our copper source is chlorophyll. Which, chlorophyll in and of itself, there are a lot of people who claim it has really good deodorizing effects and it's going to make your breath smell better and all of these crazy claims. I honestly don't really believe in it. If you really want to get some chlorophyll, just go eat some leafy greens. There's way more chlorophyll in there. The fact that this is chlorophyll was just because it is a good form of copper for us to be using. Dissolves nicely, doesn't taste like a whole lot, seems to be stable and absorb well, so this is the form we went with. It makes it green. It does look a little bit funky, but it works well, and yeah. And it doesn't take a whole lot of mixing. You can see probably that it is completely dissolved with just a bit of shaking in a very full bottle, so there's not a whole lot of space to actually be shaking it, so it dissolves really easily, which is exactly what you want from an electrolyte supplement. You don't want to be drinking chunky electrolytes. Okay, you have a glass next to you?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
Cheers. So it's pretty neutral.
Quick notes on the flavor. It is slightly salty. You definitely got that sweetness from the magnesium. The only element of this which really stands out to me is the smell, but it's not unpleasant. It's just distinct. Actually, the smell reminds me a little bit of the most neutral exercise sweat. Just the sweat that you would get from walking around the neighborhood or on a warm, very warm, sunny day. It's not unpleasant at all. It doesn't bother me. And we've tried some different combinations, adding this electrolyte to a juice. You could try adding it to iced tea. I think if you add it to another drink, it would actually be really nice and neutral, and it wouldn't affect the flavor much at all. Of course, this is our neutral, non-flavored electrolyte, so you can imagine that there's going to be some different flavors and other options for an electrolyte coming soon. But for now, if you want to flavor it yourself, this is really neutral, and this flavor of the electrolyte is not going to get in the way of another drink.
An interesting thing is you would expect, so this contains 500 milligrams of sodium in the full dose. You would expect that that amount of salt and some of the other salts like potassium are going to make it really, really salty. And that's not the case when you drink it. There's a slight saltiness, there's an alkalinity there, there's a slight metallic tang. To go a little bit further on what Erika said about the smell of it, to me, yeah, that's an interesting smell. Like some very neutral sweat that doesn't smell like BO, I think is what you're trying.
Not a body
like
odor smell.
Not body odor.
Just really that smell that you get when there's just a bit of salt present.
And to me, what it smells like is rocks. Like it just smells like a rock that's out in the sun. Maybe it got wet a little bit because you're getting out of a river and you splash some water on a really hot rock and you kind of have that minerally damp, wet kind of smell of that rock. That's what this smells like to me. And then a very slight sulfuriness. Part of that is actually coming from a very interesting form of calcium we put in here, calcium BHB. So this is beta hydroxybutyrate. This is a ketone. So ketones are important for energy. They're important for exercise. They're important for exercise recovery. And we wanted to put a little bit of calcium in here. So we thought one of the better forms of calcium to be using here, that's also going to give this electrolyte a bit of a unique twist, is calcium BHB. And that does give you a little bit of that odd smell, but it's really mild. The way I've been drinking this is at the gym. I find that if I'm exercising really hard and I'm sweating a lot, I can get pretty nauseous. And then when I go home and I eat something salty, that nausea goes away. So the last time I was in the gym, and again, it was a really heavy workout, I sweat quite a bit, but I brought 2 scoops of this InfiniLyte mixed in half a liter of water, and I just drank that half liter of water during my hour-long workout. And I didn't feel nauseous. It actually felt more refreshing to drink the electrolyte drink. Again, might be a little bit in my head, but we know that we are actively losing minerals through our sweat, and we want to be replacing those with a solution that is isotonic, that kind of matches your body fluid, is going to mesh well, absorb well. It seems to make me feel a lot better while I go to the gym. So I do 2 scoops, drink it at the gym. Then when I get back home, again, 2 scoops in water, and I drink that water. So throughout a workout, I drink half a liter during, half a liter after, and then I just switch to normal water again. But that seems to really be helping me. And again, if it tasted really bad, I wouldn't be able to do that. But this tastes very neutral, very easy to drink. And that's one of the reasons why we actually just said, you know what, we're going to release the unflavored, because the flavored versions are interesting. If you add acidity to this, the saltiness comes out a lot. And if you add certain flavors, other unpleasant elements that are completely hidden in here start to come out. So we're working with a different company to try and flavor it. We want, if we bring out a drink, that it's something that you would drink even if you didn't need an electrolyte, something that just tastes nice, because you're going to be drinking a lot of it, you're going to be drinking 1 liter of it, and you want it to taste nice, not some weird off flavor, which up until this point we've only had weird off flavors, and we've had a pretty unpleasant time testing the flavored stuff, but all of us around the office have absolutely no issues with the unflavored. And it's our favorite by far. So this is a really good form. Works well, works for exercise recovery. And I think that's a really important part we're going to touch on now. I'll go through the whole ingredient list and tell you exactly what's in there and at what dose. And then maybe throughout it, I'll give a couple of comments on why we chose to do certain things. But this is just a product overview, so I don't want to make this too long. We're actually going to be doing a podcast on this. I believe that's going to be the next podcast episode, so we'll go much more in depth. Refreshing. It's kind of like if you took all of the fun out of coconut water.
Yeah, I was
That's
thinking of
like-
coconut water as I was drinking it, and that sensation that you get when you drink coconut water, feeling extra hydrated afterwards, like more hydrated than drinking water. I definitely get just after drinking this. And that subtle salty sweetness at the end, especially just because there was a little bit of granules at the bottom, that reminded me of coconut water for sure.
Yeah. And so whenever I'm not feeling great, if I'm sick and I'm feeling nauseous, or I've drank a little bit too much and I have a hangover and I'm not feeling great, if I have some coconut water the next day, I feel fine. Or when I'm sick, maybe it's a comfort thing, but also some of the electrolytes in there, how it tastes. This actually seems to do the same. Luckily, I haven't had such a brutal hangover in a long time, so I haven't been able to test this. But next time I have a little bit too much fun, I'm definitely going to be drinking this electrolyte in the morning to see if it helps with overall recovery. But you definitely mess up your electrolyte balance after a night of drinking, so definitely keep that in mind. Or in our case, when we go out to a pretty warm club evening, like for example, last weekend we went to a club and it started getting pretty warm towards the middle of the night. I was sweating profusely. When I got home, I didn't drink the electrolyte, but I should have. Now that we actually have some of it on hand, that's definitely something I'm going to be doing when we come back after a night out of heavy dancing, sweating, whatever, a festival day or whatever it is. I can take some of this electrolyte. Okay, so now let's actually run through what's in here. We have 75 milligrams of calcium, and that's coming from calcium beta-hydroxybutyrate, the ketone source. That is only 6% of your daily value of calcium, but that's roughly about how much you can lose if you're heavily exercising for 1 to 2 hours. So this is a nice replenishment dose. Calcium, by the way, is a very important electrolyte, and without it, you can't contract your muscles. And when you're exercising, you're contracting your muscles a lot, so clearly you're going through some calcium. It's important to replace, in our opinion, so that's why it's in here. Then we have next on the label phosphorus, and we're getting 50 milligrams of phosphorus. That is only 4% of your daily value, and that's coming from magnesium glycerophosphate. Again, a nice little bit of phosphorus to help replenish potentially what you lost. And this is something we don't need a whole lot of, but I do think, again, it is important to have it in here, and I haven't seen it in many electrolytes. And that's why we really wanted to have it in ours. I have seen it in 1 or 2, so there are some people actually doing their research. Good on you. Then we have iodine, and we're getting this from potassium iodide, and that's giving us 80 micrograms, or 53% of your daily value. Iodine is something that we definitely lose through our sweat. It is a trace mineral, so it is not an actual electrolyte. But iodine is very important, for example, for thyroid function. And thyroid function is important for muscle recovery. It is important for metabolic function, for staying lean. So we definitely want to be doing something about our iodine status if we're working out heavily and we're losing a lot of iodine. Then we have magnesium. Like I said earlier, that's from magnesium citrate and magnesium glycerophosphate, and you're getting 100 milligrams of elemental magnesium, which is 25% of your daily value. This is more than you're losing in your sweat, but magnesium is nice for recovery. It's nice during a workout too, keeps your muscles a little bit more relaxed, less chances of cramping, especially with the potassium that's in here. So that's why we went a little bit higher on the magnesium. Then we have zinc. This is from zinc bisglycinate, and it's giving you 5 milligrams or 45% of your daily value. Zinc is another mineral, a trace mineral, not an electrolyte in this case, that you lose through sweat. And it's quite important for athletes because zinc is important, for example, for testosterone production. So if you're exercising very heavily and you're not replenishing your zinc, then you could actually be hampering your recovery, your anabolic potential a little bit. Again, nice to have it in here. Then, and this is actually one of my favorites to have in here, and I think this is really making a big difference in terms of recovery. So when I've been going to the gym and I drink a serving of this during and a serving after, I seem to not have as much delayed onset muscle soreness the next day. And I think part of that is because of selenium. Selenium is another trace mineral that's extremely important in your body's endogenous antioxidant defenses, and it works specifically with the glutathione system. And you end up losing quite a bit of it through your sweat. In about 7.5 hours, they've estimated to be about 340 micrograms. This is quite a bit. You need about 55 micrograms of selenium a day, by the way. So again, if we pull that time back from these studies, a lot of these studies are looking at people in occupations, for example, steel workers who are working in foundries all day long. For 8 hours at 40 degrees Celsius or something like that, they obviously lose a lot of sweat, and in that sweat, you lose a lot of minerals, electrolytes, trace minerals. So in that population, it's quite extreme. If we dial it back a bit, looking at people who are exercising 1 to 2 hours, the selenium dose is 55 micrograms, so exactly what you need. It's your 100% daily value. And because selenium is such a strong antioxidant, and oxidation is definitely a part of delayed onset muscle soreness, and we see people who are using tart cherry, cyanidin 3-glucoside, epicatechin, all of these compounds that help regulate oxidation, it helps with recovery. Selenium is the same thing, and because you lose selenium in your sweat, that means during exercise your antioxidant capacity goes down a little bit because selenium is so important in that antioxidant pathway, and because of just the muscle damage that we're getting every time you curl a dumbbell, for example, you're actually causing some micro tears in your muscles. This causes oxidation and inflammation, and then the rebuilding from this small injury is what helps build muscle. But that also makes you sore. So you do want to balance it a little bit where you're not taking a very strong antioxidant right before working out, for example, because that could limit some of the gains that you're getting. But to replenish an antioxidant that's already in your system and you lose through your sweat, through exercise, and especially at the end of it when oxidation is going up and you might need a little bit more selenium, I think this is a really nice way of enhancing your recovery potential. Again, I think electrolytes are important in the whole recovery picture, but selenium being such a good antioxidant really plays an important role here, and I think that's making the big difference. And this is something I haven't seen in any electrolyte, I believe. Then we have copper. We have 900 micrograms of copper in here. That's 100% daily value. Copper is something that we also lose through our sweat. It's important for norepinephrine synthesis, for example, so it has a big impact on mood, on focus, and I think that also plays a role here. I have to say, sometimes if I exercise really heavily, and I haven't replenished with InfiniLyte, then I can feel a little bit mentally drained afterwards. And even with InfiniLyte, I feel mentally drained after a good workout. But I feel a little bit less mentally drained, a little bit more focused, and that could be coming from the copper, because that's having an effect on norepinephrine. If you're exercising, maybe you're burning through a little bit more norepinephrine. Again, quite pseudoscientific, but you lose copper through your sweat, and we want to replenish it because copper is very important, and there's a relationship between zinc and copper too. Those keep each other in balance. We have zinc in here, we have copper in here. They're going to compete a little bit with absorption, but it does mean that we're going to have balanced amounts of zinc and copper in our system, which is what we want. Then we have manganese. We have 2.3 milligrams in here. That's again 100% of your daily value, and this has wide-ranging effects on many different enzyme systems, on oxidation pathways, inflammation pathways, muscle protein synthesis pathways. So manganese is another important one just for overall functioning of our body, of our muscles. It is a trace mineral. It is not an electrolyte. Same copper, by the way, not an electrolyte. It is a trace mineral. Manganese, again, you lose it through your sweat, we want to replace it. Then we have chromium. Chromium at 35 micrograms, again, that's 100% of your daily value. Chromium also has an important role in weight management, in metabolic function, so this is, again, something we really want to be replenishing when we lose it through our sweat. Trace mineral, not an electrolyte. Then we have chloride. So chloride, this is coming from sodium chloride, and we have 750 milligrams of chloride. That is 33% of your daily value. That's a pretty hefty chloride dose for an electrolyte, and that's really important because chloride is one of the main electrolytes that's actually being used. I think that's probably one of the more important ones. This is why a lot of electrolytes, even if they just contain sodium chloride, you're getting two electrolytes there, probably two of the more important ones in the overall picture, especially in terms of being in a dire situation, the diarrhea thing we talked about earlier. So that's why those work well, and that's really a big focus we had here. We wanted to have a very solid dose of chloride in here. But we didn't want to go too crazy high on sodium, and there's a couple of reasons for this. So let me first tell you what the actual sodium dose is. That is 500 milligrams of elemental sodium. That's 22% of your daily value. Now, if you look at overall sodium consumption, pretty much everyone is over the recommended upper limit. So I believe the upper limit is around 2.3 grams. Most people are consuming about 3.4 grams in the US. And if you look globally, it's even higher. I believe it's around 4.2 grams per day. So almost double of what we should be getting. And if you look at a lot of these studies where they're analyzing the amount of electrolytes that you're losing through your sweat, you often see sodium topping the list there. That indicates to a lot of people that you lose primarily sodium through your sweat, but something that a lot of people aren't taking into account, and we hadn't taken into account at all in the beginning either. So first, our sodium dose was actually quite a bit higher, almost double. We realized through some of these research studies that we were reading that if you intake excessive amounts of sodium, your body's natural response is to excrete more of it in your sweat. So, if you're looking at some of these steel workers, for example, they had very, very high sodium losses. But, knowing some of my friends who are in that industry, they might not always be eating very healthy meals. Sometimes there's maybe not a lot of choice outside of the steel refinery. Maybe you have to eat the cafeteria food. Maybe you're eating a lot of salty snacks because you're feeling quite drained being in this hot environment all of the time. whatever it is, most people in general already are consuming high amounts of sodium. These people might be consuming even higher amounts of sodium. And if you then look at what's happening in their sweat, they have very high amounts of sodium losses in their sweat. But this is a bit of a difficult result to examine because they're not actually controlling how much sodium those individuals are actually consuming. But if you look at other studies where they are controlling the amount of sodium that's being consumed and then looking at the sweat, you see that if you consume more sodium, you have more sodium in your sweat.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. But that also means that we don't have to go too high on sodium. So you see one of our potential competitors here, the one that's really popular at the moment. I won't mention its name, but I will say it contains 1,000 milligrams of sodium. And they probably looked at a lot of this research and they thought, you lose a lot of sodium through your sweat. We need to give people a lot of sodium to replenish it. But what they're probably doing is giving more sodium to people to actually sweat out. With that in mind, we don't know 100% what the proper dosage of sodium is because of this difficult thing where you have to control how much sodium someone is eating to see then how much sodium they're sweating out. So we went a little bit middle of the road there. We went 500 milligrams. That should be plenty to replenish most people's losses during an hour or two of exercise. And if you need a little bit more sodium, well, that's really easy to get because you just eat a salty snack or you add a little bit more salt onto your food. Easy peasy, easy fix. You can be a bit more flexible there. You can even add a little bit more salt to it if you really wanted to, but we think it's at the proper dosage. And then we have potassium. And sodium and potassium have an interesting relationship where potassium prevents some of the negative effects of sodium too. So there's been a lot of debate. Is this recommended upper intake level of sodium? Is it too low? There's been a lot of talk, of course, like if people have high blood pressure, the first thing that your doctor usually tells you is to reduce sodium consumption. And we don't want to come in here and say that's a bad recommendation. If your doctor tells you to do that, definitely do that. They probably have a reason for telling you to do so. But what's maybe more important is that you need that potassium to balance out the negative cardiovascular effects of sodium. And it's not that sodium itself is bad. So one of the reasons why we went with 400 milligrams of elemental potassium, which is quite a bit higher than you see in other electrolytes, is because we also have a pretty high dose of sodium in there. And in about 1 to 2 hours of exercise, you can lose about 400 milligrams of potassium if you're really going for it. So this is a nice replenishment dose of potassium, and it goes well with the higher dose of sodium, and those two balanced makes for a very nice effect in our opinion. Last but not least, we have boron, and that boron is at 1 milligram, and we're getting it from boron glycinate. Boron, strangely enough, doesn't have a daily value, so we can't list it. This is strange because we definitely need boron. Boron is important for our bone health, joint health, various hormone systems, and we lose it through our sweat. It's a trace mineral, it's not an electrolyte, but it is something that we think is important to replenish after exercise, and we've seen with a lot of people who are taking our boron glycinate on a daily basis that they see certain benefits in terms of hormone profiles, in terms of recovery, in terms of free testosterone, things like this. So in the overall recovery picture, boron again is very important. And that rounds out our electrolyte.
So
quite a lot.
If you're somebody who is going to the gym on a regular basis, if you like to go to other exercise classes, if you're hiking outside, you're biking, or let's say you have a job where you're doing a lot of heavy physical labor, basically anything that is getting your heart rate up and is requiring you to sweat, you need an electrolyte. And this electrolyte is really great because it's neutral in flavor. It has more than just your basic sodium and chloride that other electrolytes have. It has trace minerals, it has magnesium. This is going to help feel just relaxed after you drink the electrolyte. This is going to help replenish all of those very important minerals that you need just on a daily basis, and it's going to go above and beyond and have other effects more than just hydration and replenishment, but also benefits for your health in general. So if you are looking for a new electrolyte to try, or if you haven't tried very many electrolytes in the past, definitely check out InfiniLyte. We're going to have links to both of the new products just below this YouTube video, so you can click there, read a little bit more about the product, try it for yourself, and if you do order it, definitely let us know on Reddit. Our Reddit is r/Nootropics Depot, and tell us about what you've ordered, and we're excited to hear about your experience too.
Yeah. And one last thing, if you are a serious bodybuilder, you're going to the gym a lot, you're taking pre-workouts, post-workouts, you can actually add 2 scoops of this to your pre-workout. That will preload you with some electrolytes. It won't change the flavor of your pre-workout too much, because most pre-workouts contain an insane amount of flavorings and flavor maskers and things like that. So this will fit nicely into a pre-workout. Similarly, if you take a post-workout supplement for recovery, you could add your second dose of that into there. So of InfiniLyte into your existing post-workout that is probably already flavored. This way you have a flavoring that you're familiar with, that you like, and you can just add this to it. I haven't tried it in like a protein shake or anything like that, but this will probably work well in a protein shake too. So I think the unflavored version is just a good way to really add electrolytes to a lot of different things. Here's a really crazy one. If you're going out for a night of drinking, you could dissolve a scoop into your first drink of the night. Make a little bit of a green michelada.
That's a nice idea. Another thing you could do if you're wanting to add your electrolyte into a morning routine rather than adding it before you go work out, or let's say you're someone who does a little bit of light exercise throughout the day, put this electrolyte in your water that you use to take your supplements with. That would be like the super efficient way. We're really excited about this electrolyte, and we're really excited for you to try it and to hear your reviews and feedback. So as soon as you get it in your hands and you've tried it for a couple weeks, definitely let us know what you think. Let's move on to the next product. This is a product that is really exciting because this is a new stack from Natrium Health, and it's based around Berberine.
And this was Natrium Health too, by the way.
Yes.
So stacks are generally Natrium Health. We're all the same brand, same lab testing, same facility. Everything is the same, just a different name. Natrium being focused more on easier to use products, friendly electrolyte, and in this case,
BerbeLean. So we had a podcast episode that came out in July talking all about the benefits of berberine for managing hunger and staying full throughout the day and managing glucose metabolism and basically benefiting our fitness level, our fat and our brown fat versus our white fat tissue, and basically for people who are looking to lose weight or to maintain their current weight, berberine is a really, really good supplement because it's going to help us properly and efficiently metabolize glucose. But before BerbeLean, our new product, we just had a couple of standalone products containing berberine, but now we have a whole stack, and this is going to be a way more comprehensive berberine experience. So let's talk a little bit about what, beyond these glucose metabolism benefits, what is BerbeLean actually bringing us in addition to that?
So, BerberLean, like the name suggests, and like Erika was already saying, is definitely a berberine focus stack. So let's begin with that first. We have 550 milligrams of the berberine phytosome. That's the full dose of the Indenia berberine phytosome. This works really well. Higher bioavailability, better tolerability for most people, even though I think most people react totally fine to berberine, but there is a small amount of people who are a little bit sensitive to it, especially at the start. The phytosome prevents that issue. But the real benefit, in my opinion, of the phytosome is that it kind of acts like an extended release mechanism, so it lasts longer kind of all day long. So that's the main focus here. And one thing that we didn't go super, super deep on the Berberine podcast, but we'll talk a little bit more with in the context of BerbeLean, is GLP-1. GLP-1 is a peptide that is excreted after we eat food from our gut, and it slows gastric emptying, so that means food stays in your stomach longer and doesn't get absorbed as quickly. This is good because it helps slow the amount of glucose that's hitting your system, it slows the amount of lipids that are hitting your system, it makes it easier for the insulin systems to kick up, for everything to be properly disposed of, to be utilized. GLP-1 helps with that. And then another thing that GLP-1 does, it increases insulin secretions in response to the food that we eat. So this decrease in gastric emptying, the slowing of gastric emptying, makes us feel fuller for longer, makes it so that less glucose is hitting our system as rapidly, and then the increased insulin secretions of GLP-1 make it a really, really good metabolic regulator. And that's obviously one of the reasons why Berberine works so well, and it's why GLP-1 agonists are really, really popular right now. We won't talk about that because that's in the medical world, but know that they're super popular, and those are the two reasons why they are popular. So berberine in and of itself, especially in the context of if you've eaten and the satiety after a meal, goes up with berberine because it's slowing down gastric emptying and it's modulating certain pathways that are involved with appetite, hunger. So berberine already reduces that. But there's some ways that we can help enhance that, and that's something we really wanted to do with BerbeLean because we wanted it to be a good appetite suppressant too. And to make it a better appetite suppressant, we added in saffron. So saffron by itself has a pretty potent appetite suppressing effect because it increases serotonin levels, and serotonin decreases appetite. And this is maybe also an important part of the whole emotional eating aspect. And that's also something we wanted to address. So saffron increases your mood, and through that higher serotonin mechanism can help decrease appetite. And now in combination with berberine, that in our experience is doing a really good job of decreasing hunger. A lot of people around the office, we've tested this extensively on a bunch of people. Turns out a lot of people are very interested in weight loss supplements. So we don't have a ton of takers around the office every single round with beta testing, but for this one we had a spectacular turnout. Pretty much everyone around the office wanted it. I think everyone wants to be a little bit slimmer, so that probably also means BerbeLean is going to be quite a high seller for us, which is really good. But the more important thing for us is that it actually works well, and that's why we did so much beta testing on it. And for the people that beta tested it, they said it made it really easy to start fasting. So if people are doing the intermittent fasting thing and they're having issues with controlling their hunger, BerbeLean seems to do a good job. Erika and I don't do that, but I am basically hungry all day long, especially with some of the supplements we take like Systemax and cyanidin 3-glucoside, which can help enhance your appetite. Generally, this isn't a bad thing. I have the mental control to control my appetite, and okay, I'm hungry, but I'm not going to eat. That's easy for me to do. That's not easy for everyone else to do, and it would be even easier if I wasn't thinking about hunger at all, and that is definitely the case with BerbeLean. Today I had made breakfast, and then Erika, what felt to me was like an hour and a half later, said, "Hey, I made us some lunch, come down and have some food." And I said to Erika, "No way, like we just ate." And she said, "No, it's been about 4 or 5 hours since we ate." And I absolutely did not feel hungry, and it wasn't a very big breakfast either. I would have normally felt hungry after about 3 or 4 hours, but now it's been 5, zero appetite. So if that's something you're really into, you want to reduce your appetite, that definitely seems to work. Works for me, works for many people around the office. So that's a really good one, and it could be a good aid to intermittent fasting.
Not to be the devil's advocate, but I do want to add my experience to the mix, because I'm not interested in necessarily losing weight or controlling my appetite, but I do find that the glucose metabolism supplements, the ones that are focused on helping glucose metabolism, do help me to stay fuller longer, which is great because when I get hungry, I get ravenously hungry and it's super intense, and sometimes it can just take over my entire mood. And it's not like I'm daydreaming about food. It's like if I don't eat right now, I'm going to lose it kind of level of hunger. And I think that BerbeLean specifically helps to kind of calm this aggressive response to hunger, and that's what I experienced today. So I was cleaning a little bit, and then I started cooking lunch, and I could feel myself getting hungrier and hungrier, and by the time I sat down to eat, I was really ready to eat, and I was quite hungry, but my mood never dipped to that point where I was going to start a fight, or I was going to get really intense, or have that subtle nausea feeling from not having eaten enough and feeling really hungry. So the BerbeLean definitely kept me a little bit further back from the edge compared to normal, and I can reach that edge of hunger quite quickly, but this was really useful for me to stay back from that. So for anybody who is curious about this supplement or just wants to know a different perspective, my focus isn't weight loss, but I do find that this was still great in terms of managing my hunger and my response to that hunger.
And again, weight loss is something that Erika is not necessarily looking for, but getting lean, so being muscular, having smaller amounts of fat on your body, having some of that muscle pop through a little bit more, that is something Erika is looking for.
Yeah.
That is something I'm looking for, and I'm looking also for a little bit of weight loss. Even though I'm in the proper BMI range still, I could always lose just a little bit, get a little bit leaner, a little bit more defined in terms of muscles. That's great. But to further aid that, we also needed to add in a few other things that helped with thermogenesis. So Berberine helps with thermogenesis. This is the process by which fat literally gets burned inside of your cells and produces heat. This is how part of how we regulate our body temperature through thermogenesis. But if you kick up thermogenesis, you will feel a bit warmer, and BerbeLean both made us feel quite a bit warmer because
Yes.
it is quite thermogenic. So do keep that in mind. But that heat does mean that fat is getting burnt. So for the fat loss aspect, this is really important. Berberine does it. But we wanted to enhance it. So we put in some black ginger. Black ginger is a very strong thermogenic. For people who have tried our black ginger in the past, some people have said that it makes them feel too hot, especially in combination with cyanidin 3-glucoside. That is a combination that Erika and I take every day, cyanidin 3-glucoside and black ginger. So our thermogenesis is up there already. But to test BerbeLean, we've been dropping our black ginger dose and just taking BerbeLean. And I think that BerbeLean, we are taking our cyanidin 3-glucoside, by the way, but the addition of BerbeLean to cyanidin 3-glucoside is definitely more thermogenic than the combination of black ginger and cyanidin 3-glucoside. And that black ginger standalone is at 100 milligrams, and in BerbeLean it's at 50 milligrams. But in addition to black ginger, we also put in a brand new ingredient called Cure Cousin. This is being made by Sabinza, the same people that make Subroxy, so you know they're very good at what they do. Subroxy works extremely well. Cure Cousin does too. It's a compound called calabin A. It's very closely related to curcumin, and maybe Erika can flash up. Here's curcumin. We're looking at curcumin right now. And now you're going to flash up calabin A right next to the curcumin. That would be a nice thing to do. And you can see that the molecules are pretty similar. There's definitely some chemical differences. But that's why it's called Cure Cousin. Sabinza, if you're listening, it is a bit of a funny name.
I like it. Nice work.
So, as you can guess, it stands for curcumin cousin. It's a cousin to curcumin. They're so similar that they could be cousins. And interestingly enough, if you look at turmeric, where you find curcumin, you also find calabin A. So they coexist within turmeric. Just like curcumin, calabin A also has good anti-inflammatory effects, and this is important in the whole weight loss aspect, metabolic function too, because inflammation ruins our metabolic function, so we definitely want to keep inflammation down. So calabin A is an interesting one, especially to have in the stack because it's helping with inflammation. But more importantly, calabin A seems to drive thermogenesis quite heavily, and it converts white adipose tissue, which is not very metabolically active, active, to brown adipose tissue, which is very metabolically active. And black ginger also does that. And berberine also does that. So now you have 3 ingredients here which have thermogenic potential, and in our experience, it is quite thermogenic, which is really interesting because this is not our main thermogenesis stack. We are actually working on one too. Paul has tried that one out already at a bit of a too intense dosages at certain things, and he was telling us on a meeting recently that he was profusely sweating. He thought he wasn't going to make it. So we're definitely going to dial that one down a few notches, but that's going to be quite intense. For right now, BerbeLean is also quite an intense thermogenic, and it has a bit more of a specialty at dealing with overall metabolic function, getting that glucose properly handled, making sure our lipids get handled properly, and that we don't make too many lipids or too many glucose type compounds. So it helps improve the overall metabolic picture, which is really important in the context of this stack. But that black ginger and the cure cousin both add a thermogenic layer to the mix. That's quite impressive.
It's noticeable enough that I felt quite warm right around that lunchtime that I was talking about, and I don't notice a super thermogenic effect from the black ginger or cyanidin 3-glucoside, but I did today after taking the BerbeLean for the first time. So this is something that I'm really excited about for the coming winter season, because here in the Netherlands it can rain a lot. We're doing a lot of biking. Sometimes you're out in the winter biking through really just pouring rain.
Yep.
And then when you go inside somewhere to a cozy bar or a restaurant, your clothes dry just on your body, and then by the time you're ready to go, you're ready to get wet again. But I'm really curious to see what the thermogenic basically transformation is going to be this year compared to last year, now that we have these different elements in our stack. So that'll be a good experiment.
Because last year we only had cyanidin 3-glucoside, and I do definitely think that actually helped, because I seem to get less cold less often, but we hadn't added in black ginger at that point yet. That is a summertime edition because we just came out with it a few months ago.
Yep.
And then BerbeLean is completely new, so I am also quite curious about that. And then the last ingredient is piperine. Piperine is in there to enhance overall bioavailability, but piperine is also slightly thermogenic. So
okay.
That's another little thing there. And Sabinza did some research on cure cousin and combining it with piperine, and they found that when they combined cure cousin with piperine, they saw a significant uptick in bioavailability. So that's one of the reasons why we put piperine in this stack. Let me just double check I'm not missing anything here. Nope, that's it. So that's the full formula, and it's really designed to help with overall metabolic function. You're going to get all of those benefits from berberine, then you're going to get the thermogenesis from black ginger, and from cure cousin, you're going to get some additional metabolic support from saffron, and all of this together, all of these ingredients are mood boosters and cognition enhancers. And this is something we touched on briefly with emotional eating. A lot of people also just feel stressed, anxious, a little bit sad, and to solve this issue, they eat. You call it stress eating, emotional eating. It seems to be at the core of many people's overweightness. So one aspect of the stack too is that we wanted to prevent that. So that's why there's saffron and black ginger in there too, because those two together have a very strong mood boosting potential, and berberine has mood boosting potential too. So if you combine all of that, you're now getting good metabolic function, thermogenesis, so you're just feeling and starting to look better over time while you're taking it, and then the overall mood boost is preventing you from the stress eating behavior, and hopefully this is also going to allow you to get the confidence, the motivation, the proper mood to get out and exercise, and then that exercise is going to increase your mood even further, so the whole picture
turns into a delicious cycle.
Exactly, and that's
rather than a vicious cycle.
Yes, you break the vicious circle cycle. And then the more you exercise, the better you eat, the more weight you lose, the better you look. It's all going to cycle into each other, and it's going to be a bit of a positive feedback loop. So that's really what this is designed for too. It's for a longer term journey. Let's say you're at the beginning of your weight loss journey now, you're not exactly happy with the weight you're at, or perhaps how you physically look, you want to tighten up a bit, you want to get some more muscle definition. You can start taking BerbeLean. It's going to immediately start increasing your mood and also cognitive function. So it's going to allow you to focus on the things that need focus. And then over time, it's going to help you to eat less and to lose some weight, which is just going to be a good overall effects profile. And I think for me, the main thing that is standing out here is that cognition enhancing effect and that focus enhancing effect. You were saying earlier you felt quite focused. Yep. You took BerbeLean today, so that could be part of it. I also felt quite focused, even though I've had a pretty tough week with all of these new product releases coming up, and we just recorded the podcast, so normally I wouldn't be as focused, and you can probably tell in my speech it isn't as concise and direct today, but BerbeLean is definitely helping to keep me on track, which is very beneficial. So I can imagine this is a great one to just add to your overall stack if that's a big part of your goal, but you also are looking for some mood enhancement and cognition enhancement. BerbeLean is pretty perfect.
This has definitely made it easier for me to stay focused in terms of recording this video and staying engaged, but it's also helped me to just stay full from the meal that we had before, because oftentimes by the time we actually get started in filming, there's been a few hours that go by and I can get really hungry, and I don't actually feel that. So that lack of hunger is also helping me to stay focused in addition to these mood boosting supplements. So all of that together, it's also a super effective supplement that I've noticed, even though I'm not necessarily going to reach for it for weight loss purposes, but the other benefits are really, really noticeable and I think would benefit my daily stack or perhaps my occasional stack.
Yeah. And I think for the remainder of this bottle, so we have 30 capsules in here, 2 weeks for me, 2 weeks for Erika. I'm going to take out the black ginger out of our stack, or my stack at least, and replace it with BerbeLean for a while, just to see what happens. I really like the effects of black ginger. I really like the effects of saffron. Actually, that does remind me, we did double up the saffron dose in BerbeLean today because we also took our normal saffron. So that probably further enhanced the appetite suppressing effect, which is good to know if you want to further enhance the effects of BerbeLean in terms of appetite suppression. Maybe add a little bit of extra saffron in there to take you from 30 milligram dose, which is the standard dose, to 60 milligrams, which is the double dose. And we both really like that double dose, and we accidentally took it today because I took the black ginger out of our stack, but I didn't take the saffron out of our stack. But they work well together.
So we've got 2 new products for you to try out, and they are BerbeLean and InfiniLyte.
And actually, now that I see these 2 in front of me, you could take this one in the morning to suppress your appetite, and then you could take some InfiniLyte during the day to keep yourself going if you are someone who's intermittent fasting and is having a bit of difficulty maybe with the appetite aspect of it all. That's another just good thing for InfiniLyte generally, even if you're not taking Berberine. A lot of people who are fasting all day long, they don't have a source of electrolytes that they're getting, because normally you'd be getting those from the food that you're eating. But if you're not eating food all day long, and you're only eating food at the end of the day, but you're still active, you're still sweating, you're still losing electrolytes, maybe having an electrolyte supplement in the rotation is really good. And I see a lot of people who are very serious about intermittent fasting are using an electrolyte, or they're drinking a little bit of broth, or they're having something salty that doesn't have any calories. This would be a good way to do that, and especially combining these 2, appetite suppression and then the electrolyte to keep you going throughout the day. It's probably really nice.
Awesome. So definitely check these products out on our website. The link is going to be in the description of the YouTube video and also on the streaming platforms, so you can check out these products for yourself and try them. And once you received them, we would love to hear what your experience is. Definitely share with us what you're feeling, what benefits you're noticing on Reddit. That's r/Nootropics Depot. And as always, subscribe to our social media channels because there's new podcasts, product videos, and fun stuff coming your way every single month. So with that, we will say goodbye for now, and we're excited to hear how you do with these new products. See ya!
Goodbye.